Clearly, we're in a mental health crisis in this country. We're learning more and more about mental health diagnoses, about potential treatments for mental health. We're working very hard to destigmatize mental health disorders.
We've made a lot of progress. We've worked really hard to address this mental health crisis. We're still in a crisis, but I think the crisis is different. There has been, I think, a huge increase in substance use struggles over the last couple of years, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of synthetic THC products that are more readily available and more widely used.
This new marijuana is definitely new. It's not what we thought we knew from the Woodstock days, and we're just beginning to understand what that looks like.
People think it's safe to use and they can just go to the store and get whatever they think they want without any warning labels or risks. It's going to be like Russian roulette for a lot of these people.
For individuals who are already really prone to things like depression, things like anxiety disorders, high rates of suicide, they can really impact that picture in a really negative way.
And yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, that is their whole personality. Like, they're high all the time. They can't really function without it. And you could argue they can't really function all that well with it either.
There's quite a lot of concern with adolescents.
The first time I smoked weed, I was probably 14 years old. I just really wanted to fit in, and that was how you did it.
When you talk to high school students, you're in the minority if you haven't seen it, been around it, or tried it.
The younger you use, the more you use, the likelihood of having ongoing problems increases.
There is a direct connection between using high-potency THC and problems like psychosis, hallucinations, suicide, and violence.
We were the first state that approved recreational marijuana, and we were also the first state that said, whoa, there were some unintended consequences here.
We have to figure out what to do with this picture because I don't know that marijuana products are going anywhere.
Wyoming is close to Colorado. I think any 21-year-old can go buy it and unfortunately bring it back up here. So there's already a pretty ready-made market.
I have always thought weed should be legal. And now that I live in a place where it's legal, I've seen the ramifications of the legalization of weed.
This is a drug that people who are going to use it love. And people don't want to hear bad things about their drug.
My name's Grace Davis. I'm 24. I was 15 or 16 around the time legalization was coming on the radar. A lot of my friends had started smoking weed when they were in middle school, like even as young as like 12 or 13. Everyone knew who to ask if you wanted weed. And then when recreational weed was legalized, it became a lot easier to get better weed. Social media played a big role, so Snapchat was just becoming really popular, and it was really easy to talk with your friends and then just delete the message. Hey, can we meet? It was just easier to buy it. I didn't smoke weed until I was 18. I was very afraid of getting in trouble as a kid.
High risk for anybody whose brain is developing. And it's because of how the endocannabinoid system works. It's our mood regulation system, and it's all over the body, but highly in the brain. It really helps us manage life. We make our own chemicals in our brain for those receptors.
We're very big on the development of the prefrontal cortex in adolescence, and
We know that along with nicotine, THC has the most negative impact on development of the prefrontal cortex.
You too, and thank
If
you.
you flood the brain with THC, that fits into that receptor, and it really doesn't let your own natural endocannabinoid system work.
The cannabis molecule itself, it's really what we call lipophilic. It loves fat. So when you smoke or vape, it goes straight to fatty tissue, so it's deposited in your brain. Unlike alcohol, where I can say, I'm going to have this drink, and I can predict how long it will take your body to excrete it, that's not true with cannabis. And it may take weeks or months to wash out.
Once you use regularly, you have this very high risk of developing what's called cannabis use disorder, which is addiction to cannabis, and you start having withdrawal. And withdrawal is extremely uncomfortable. And so that's why they're using it so frequently. And then that really sets them up for all the other consequences, and the worst one being psychosis.
It's interesting to look back at it now and have the language to identify when I was really sick and when things were getting really bad. I think when you're smoking, you don't realize how bad your mental health is getting. You don't fully understand when you're in psychosis and you enter it. I remember one time passing by a hotel. I was convinced that the way the cars were parked in the hotel was some sort of indicator about who was in the hotel, and they all parked in a certain way because they were trying to communicate something. I would pray a lot, and I think that when you are in or entering psychosis, or very manic in my case, it becomes super elevated, where seeing small signs that God is looking out for you here and there, that's normal. I would get the idea and feel so confidently that someone was about to move in with me. And so I reorganized everything so they were halved, so that the other person who was moving in with me would have half of the chores. Things were getting worse because I was using marijuana, and then I was treating myself with marijuana. So it was kind of like Russian roulette every time I smoked, and because I was smoking such high levels of THC, that's how it panned out for me. But
weeks before he was sober and clean, and he came back. It was like, it was Johnny again. The aliens brought him back, and it was weird. But then it was just so addictive and so compelling. That's part of the disease. He would just think, oh, I'm fine. My brain is healed. I'll be safe to smoke again. And he'd get right back into it, and boom. People don't think that you can overdose from weed.
I'm an emergency medicine physician, and I work in an emergency department in Colorado. A good portion of the patients I see every day are directly related to substance abuse problems, and the primary abuse in our area is cannabis.
There's a really interesting phenomenon lately of the idea of greening out, which is not something that we saw as much with more traditional organic marijuana products, which involve high anxiety, sometimes losing consciousness, sometimes things like nausea, vomiting, sometimes psychotic features and symptoms, things that we would almost attribute to a mini overdose.
Mary Moss's son started using high-potency marijuana in college and developed cannabis-induced psychosis.
That was the first that I had ever heard of it, the first that I had ever even thought that cannabis could have been a catalyst into, bringing this whole chaos into our family's life.
You never heard of cannabis-induced psychosis? What is that?
I looked at a kid who had everything going for him, And I had to stare at him sitting on a hospital bed with a sheet and a pillow in this room, stark white.
The idea in the Woodstock days that people would think that, smoking marijuana would lead to an outcome like that, it was crazy.
The thought that marijuana psychosis is rare is a huge misconception. It's not a small number, it's huge, and we're going to see even more as more kids use.
All of these things add up, and we as a society pay for those costs.
Almost 50% of people who develop cannabis-induced psychosis can go on to develop schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And the #1 drug is cannabis. People that have a history of mental health issues are more susceptible, but we are finding that it's not limited to that. This could happen to anybody.
Like, how would you describe yourself as a person before this happened?
I can't answer that question. I don't remember who I was.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Oh,
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
okay.
I know.
I'm so sorry. I thought I was going to be able to do this. Ask question again?
Yeah. So, how would you describe yourself and like your upbringing, your childhood, like before this whole event happened?
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm an audiologist. So then after grad school, I got a job with UCLA in Los Angeles, and I primarily worked at a clinic in Thousand Oaks, and I was the only audiologist there, and it was kind of a new position. I was focused on my career and going places with my dog and hiking and camping and just soaking up what California had to offer. Then I started going to a local dog park in Thousand Oaks, and I met a lot of really nice people, and one person stood out was Chad, and we got along really well. We were the same age. He was really funny, and so we just really got to know each other pretty much almost every day when we were at the dog park. It was Memorial Day weekend. We were just in the living room catching up, and probably took about an hour and a half of us talking about our weekend, like it was a normal evening. He said he needed to go smoke, and I know he kind of does this for a while, and all of his items were outside on his porch. I joined him to sit outside with him. So as we're talking, I decided to ask to take a hit out of his bong. I was never really into marijuana. The times that I tried marijuana was always with my friends. It was a stereotypical experience with trying cannabis. Giggling and had an increase in appetite and went right to bed. So he prepared the bong for me, and I took a hit.
Mental health challenges in our young people. And I think the word is finally getting out.
When Laura first started doing her work, and I didn't agree with it, but in order to accept that what she was saying was true, it would have meant accepting that I had a real problem and that Johnny and I had taken a part of that problem together.
I've been sober 2 years. The last time I smoked was Thanksgiving 2022. I didn't experience really bad paranoia until I started smoking. But that paranoia has never gone away, even after I've quit. I really didn't have the self-awareness that I was super sick and I was getting sicker. I became so desperate and in so much pain that it was the first thing I wanted to do, was start meds. Getting on medication changed my life. I think a lot clearer now. The only treatment plan for me for the rest of my life is I have to be in therapy and I have to see a psychiatrist for the rest of my life. But it's really hard to say whether or not I would have had these mental health issues or not. I know it wouldn't have been this bad.
I never had psychosis before this or after this. I never had any mental illness before this and after this. I've been evaluated by 4 psychiatrists now, and I have no mental illness issues. To prevent this tragedy or any tragedy to happen again, just educate yourself about marijuana. If you're going to consider using it, learn more about it, learn what potency means, learn what the product is. Be careful.
Really, I see things fall in place